Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I am Roshan Jaswal, co-founder of InsuredMine, a software platform with CRM Sales and Marketing Automation, designed and developed only for insurance industry. For those of you just joining us, welcome. A recorded session of this webinar will be available on InsuredMine website.
How you succeed? Show up on time, dressed to play. That's it.
Yep.
Of course, yeah. I see Brian dialed in now, Ray, so we got someone will be monitoring us.
So yeah, if you ask me a question I don't know, just unmute Brian, if you will.
There you go. There you go. Awesome. All right, this is good.
Your success.
Folks are starting to dial in. We got last 60 seconds, so we'll just hang in there and then get started. And I am right now unmuting everybody, so feel free to chime in if there is something specific that you wanna bring to discussion. But I do see pretty good attendance kind of falling in. Hello, Brian. Thanks for joining. All right, Paula, I see to be early. So Paula writes to the panelists, to be early is to be on time. That's true. To be on time is to be on late, and to be late is unacceptable. There you go. Yep. Awesome.
Is she from New York or?
Florida.
Oh, Florida. Well, that's New York these days. I'm born in Columbus, Georgia, and I was born early, about 3-4 weeks. So that was as early as I wanted to be.
Yep.
She's from Cape Cod.
All right.
Awesome. All right. We got a pretty good attendance here, and we are hitting right on time here. So I think we will I'll share the screen and we will get started here. Today, we will be talking about agency network and how you can be helping your agencies to confront this new reality of COVID-19. And the agenda for today is we're going to be introducing our speakers, then talk about the world of agencies and what are the top 3 items that we will be bringing up in our discussion and why and how InsuredMine can be of any benefit in this space. So not further ado, our speakers today, we have Ray Williams, who have been with SecureRisk for all the time I have known. He's the CEO, and I'll let him introduce as I would, with all my words, will not be able to do justice with everything he brings to the table. And then we got John Tiene. He is the ex-CEO of A&E. And again, we'll have him introduce a little bit. And you got myself, I'll be moderating, but primarily we'll have Ray and John talking pretty much as that's what you should be hearing today. So Ray, why don't we start with your quick introduction?
Okay, I started the business real young in family business. I was an SOB, son of the boss. And when I was 24, unfortunately, he had I hired my sister the next year. We bought my mother out a few years later, and 50 years later, we've done okay. So we're glad to be here. About 1994, so coming on 26 years ago, I was in a group of agents that met over at the Big I in 94 for the you youngsters. They didn't have BOPs back then. They actually had to, ISO had to rate everything. And at the time, you paid $300 a year and you got a packet of microfiche every month of all the rates in the state. And they were going to update that and go to a CD-ROM and charge you $5,000 a year, which seemed a little high to me, from $300 to $5,000. And so we asked our Big I in Georgia to pay the $5,000, hire somebody to look up our rates and go from there. And they didn't want to do it. So today we can still look up your rates and all. So we got together in late 94. We got 44 folks together. So this is what we want to do. 42 of them signed on. Our organization started out as Shared Agency Services, and that's basically what it was. We were looking at the time for what we called a medium-sized agency, 2 to 10 million in premium, which in 95 was probably equivalent to a $15-20 million shop today. And we were looking for agents that didn't need markets, so we were looking to get niche markets, is what we did. we were looking to save money on our ISO rates and other things, which we did. We got discounts on cellular phones and copy machines and that type of stuff. And as we evolved the next year, we brought in some more folks over the years. But so our model is a cooperative. Everybody in Georgia owns 2 shares. In 06, we went into Alabama. They came over to us, they were in a group and didn't like the way it was running. So we brought them in. We're now in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. We have 107 agencies doing roughly about 3.2 billion in premiums. That's about 2.9 billion in P&C and about 300 million in benefits. We changed our name in 14, I believe, to SecureRisk. We couldn't copyright SaaS; it was already copyrighted, so we moved it to SecureRisk. Today, we're in, like I said, 4 states, and we're slowly growing because we're not running around adding members unless you can add to the equation, because we're giving, at the end of the, we're giving you 100% commission back, 90 to 95% profit sharing. We share expenses, and at the end of the day, the rest of the money goes back to the individual states and then eventually the individual owners. So our mothership, as some of the folks like to call it, is there's no money there. It's all in a K1 that goes back to our owners. When they leave, they get the money back, and they don't. We even give them a year's renewal. So we're pretty sweet guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. And again, obviously, this has been it's in the blood. We can say that, right? The whole insurance thing.
Yep.
All right. And well, that's a tall order, but I'm sure there is a lot to cover for John. So, John, why don't we start with you?
Well, let's do this quick. I've been bouncing around the insurance industry since 86 when I joined Allstate, and went from claims to underwriting, and then landed up as public affairs manager. Left there, took over the State Trade Association, representing the insurance companies back in the 90s when New Jersey was an absolute disaster for personal auto. Spent 10 years there, and we eventually got a reform law that fixed it. And went from there, went back to the company side to One Beacon, and went from VP for strategic initiatives to regional VP to director of sales and marketing for the personal lines division in 8 Northeast states. When they sold, I had the foresight not to go to Tower, and did some consulting, and then landed up being hired to be the CEO at Agency Network Exchange. With the team I put together, we grew it to 70 agencies in 2 states and $250 million in aggregated premium. It's now the 11th largest network in the country. Yep. And then 2019, I guess last year, we parted ways and we did some consulting, and now I'm in addition to consulting, I'm an executive consultant at Strategic Agency Partners. I've done some writing, and I've known Ray for quite a while, and we're lucky to have a guy with his knowledge on the panel.
Of course.
And, insurance agencies are cornerstone of the economy, and the networks and the people run the networks are really the guardians of that section of the economy, and we've got to make sure we're doing the right things so that the agencies can continue to grow and prosper.
Of course. Thank you, John. I really appreciate, obviously between 2 of you, I don't think I could have found a third one to match this panel. So thank you both for joining. It's an honor to be with you guys. So a little bit about InsuredMine. InsuredMine is I'll start with a slide actually here. It's a sales CRM and a marketing automation platform. And it is like an add-on to an agency management system. So it connects with the agency management systems and helps you do 3 core things, which is to help you convert, engage, and retain your clients, which I'm sure everybody cares about. Agency management system does a very good job in terms of your policy administration. But end of the day, we thrive when we sell well and we engage well. And that is what InsuredMine helps you accomplish without doing a double entry into another system. Rather than it connects with that management system to help you accomplish that. We integrate with, Vertaforce AMS 360, QQ Catalyst, NowSearch, HawkSoft. There are several other in the pipeline as well. We are integrating right now as we speak with Epic from Applied. So all of these allows you to integrate with your agency management system. Unfortunately, I have a pleasure of working with Ray and SecureRisk. All their agencies are leveraging InsuredMine as we came along. So it's a very interesting model. I want to quickly talk about that is when Ray and Brian approached us for InsuredMine, so their vision is obviously way ahead of most of the networks, how they're thinking, which is how do I consolidate and be on top of my data rather than be reactive? I want to be proactive. I understand what would that commission sharing, profit sharing would look like end of the year. By doing that, I can be proactive and strategize around it. But to do that, what you need to do is, it's like herding the cattle, which is because you have 100+ agencies. How do you get the data from all of them and then be able to consolidate? That was the beauty that InsuredMine was a good fit because it helped them get the data from all the management system and create that dashboard that they needed. But it was like hitting two birds with the same stone. Not only it helped them accomplish this, it also gave all their 100+ agencies now the access to InsuredMine, that they're able to use it for their sales, CRM, and marketing automation. So now it is a win-win for both sides. They want to adapt because they can do all on their sales side and the marketing side of things. And it is because we are hooked up with their management system, it is giving them this live feed into SecureRisk. I'll answer one FAQ that comes literally every time in that conversation, that agencies do not want to share their personal information of their customers with the network. Absolutely valid question. And we solved that by giving them that aggregated data by stripping off PIIs. So it was a win-win for both sides to able to accomplish what they needed to. At the same time, they are able to get the data they need. So just wanted to give that use case. We will keep this conversation a bit more informal and answer any questions. So feel free to write your question in your chat or Q&A. We will take those. All right, now.
Roshan, the only mistake you made so far is herding cats, not cattle. You can actually herd cattle.
Oh, I'll take that. Yeah. All right. So heading into what are the 3 core areas that we want to focus on today, how you can be on top of your game. And these are the 3 things we think would help you, which is by creating the right value proposition, the better value proposition. What is that messaging that needs to go out? Second is how you all are harnessing the technology. Like, we talked about how SecureRisk has leveraged InsuredMine, and it's just one example. There are several things Ray and his team has done, and we will talk about that in the process. And so that you all become more digitally relevant. And third is driving new business to partner carriers. So John, I want you to briefly touch upon all of these before we take it to the next discussion.
The bottom line is, the reality is there's pressure on agency networks. There's new entrants, there's franchises. There is pressure, and agents are starting to look at different options and starting to think about moving. So agency networks need to make sure they're providing a really good value proposition. Then bottom line, technology, it's absolute. COVID has vaulted people's engagement in the use of digital, according to McKinsey, tenfold. 10 years, we've vaulted 10 years forward in the last 6 months. So it's absolutely essential that agents have some sort of a digital presence and, quite frankly, can operate with their clients via their phone. And the bottom line is it's also carriers are changing their perspective towards networks. They're starting to get tougher. Driving new business to partner carriers is the absolute end game. And that's what we've got to get all the agents focused on, is driving business to those partner carriers. That's where the revenue is going to come from for them and for the network.
Of course, thank you. All right. So basically, when we're talking about the better value proposition, how do they think with the growing pressure, how they can position themselves?
Well, listen, we've got franchises, we've got new networks starting up, we've got carrier pressure, and let's face it, some of these new competitors, they have great marketing, and they're almost as good as used car salesmen. Lots of bells and whistles, but not necessarily a lot of substance. And so, for me, networks really need to be aware of this. They need to be cognizant of it, and they need to be constantly refining their message and ensuring that they're communicating the full value proposition to their members and to their prospects. Because quite frankly, I think a lot of times networks undersell themselves. They tend to do a lot more than they say, and they drive a lot more value through the consultation and the advice, which is, something that's a big value add. So I think agency networks need to ensure that they've got a sound and demonstrable value beyond just we give you more profit sharing revenue.
Of course. So you talked about how the competition from all corners are increasing, and if they are not establishing themselves, how it will immediately diminish their value. But also, let's talk about what are the things they should not be doing.
Let me take that one, John.
Go for it, Ray.
Yeah, my biggest peeve in all of the networks out there and all the companies too is the contracts. If you're want to join an aggregator group, or if you're in one, or if you're running one, read the darn contracts. Particularly these new company contracts, they're coming in. The latest ones now, we've had to make all owners buy cyber liability. Now, most of them had it. Everyone of them should have had it, but the new contracts that the aggregators are writing or signing say that all of your members or owners or franchisees or whatever have to have cyber liability. They've always had that for E&O, but now they're doing that. We've got one company now wants fiduciary liability in there. I hadn't figured that out yet. It's direct bill business. I mean, what are we going to be fiduciary in? But the other thing, if you're joining when we went into Alabama, we had a couple of agents they wanted to come in that wanted to come into the group, and all of a sudden they read their contracts, and one of the contracts had a 2-year non-compete. The other one had they own half of their book of business on the growth and all. So those are out there. And if you need markets, you're going to do what you need to do, but just beware or at least know going in that you're going to have an audit at the end of the deal if you ever want out. But the other thing, if you're running an aggregation group, we had our attorney drop a small little deal that says, hey, companies, you got all of these things why you can cancel the contract immediately. And we've got 107. Some people have 3,000 out there. Well, what if one of those, is a bad apple and screws up and does exactly what they weren't supposed to do? Are you going to cancel the contract for the rest of us? Or are you going to give us some time to fix the problem, get them out of the group or whatever? So that's stuff you need to know. One of our bigger national markets a few years ago, they have a non-renewal, a policy that they issue that you can't get off of. Well, I raised my hand and said, hey, if you cancel my contract and I can't get off of that, are you going to pay me for that? Yeah, we'll pay you for that. So then 2 years later or less, they came back, changed the contract, said, you don't have to sign this, but if you read the contract, said, hey, you got till the next renewal to move that business, and if you don't, we're going to assign it internally and it's ours, and you're not getting paid anymore. Well, that's not nice. So, sometimes you have to be, play hardball instead of softball, but just read those contracts and make sure what you're getting into.
Of course. So you're gonna talk about this Hotel California and check in and check out.
Well, that's what I just said. There's several of the larger groups out there have a basically a 2-year non-compete or more on their markets you share. Now you should know that going in, and if you know that, then more power to you. But if you go in not knowing that, and you build up a book of business with company ABC, and then you want to say, okay, I got $1 million with ABC now. I want to take that with me. You got to wait 2 years to move that book. So you can move it to another carrier that you didn't share with there, but you just got to, like I said, read the contract and be. Some of the the aggregator contracts, you got a non-compete against the other folks. Well, in Georgia and Metro Atlanta, our guys would hang me if they no way that their young producers are not going to be able to go out and go after business. Alabama's similar. They don't want to go after each other, but they, Mississippi's a little bit different. They have a non-compete against each other, but if somebody wants to move their business, they can do it. But if you get into an outfit and, you can't compete, that you need to know that. And you need to know where your fellow competitors are. In a Metro Atlanta, you can't do that, but South Georgia and Alabama, smaller towns, you got one competitor there, and it's you. That's in the group. So you got to look at that type of stuff. The other thing is watch out for first refusal. That's if you're in a small town and you don't have no perpetuation, that's a wonderful thing to sign. If you're in Metro Atlanta or Birmingham or Jackson, Mississippi, or wherever, in Nashville, Tennessee, and you want to sell to BB&T or Brown & Brown, and they know that your franchisor can match their price, it's not going to take too long before they, don't bid on your business anymore. So just be aware, just know what you're doing.
Yep, no, I think that's a very good advice. So
good out of it. So, you might go and say, hey, I'm willing to do that because I'm in a small area. I'm not going to get these contracts on my own. And this saves me, and I'm going to make a good living off of it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. All right, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Ray. All right. Now let's talk about how to win.
Communication. The communication is key. I said that before, and communicating back to the members on a regular basis, the value proposition. Every agency member may not take advantage of every value that's provided, but they need to know it's there so that they know that they're part of a group that's offering a really solid value proposition. And I'll go down to that last bullet point there. It's a big bugaboo for me, which is, the carriers have to understand the value the network's bringing to the relationship. The networks offer a huge advantage working with a carrier because the network's hurting and working with the members to drive the business to that carrier, drive understanding of appetite, driving so much. And I think sometimes the carriers take it for granted. And you really need to drill beyond just your local sales rep, maybe the local manager, so that everybody understands the value you're driving to the relationship.
Yeah, one of the problems we had was being a regional and not national, and so a lot of the national companies were not recognizing that they were treating us differently than they were the folks that were in a few more states. Once we got into 4 or 5 states, they've changed their mind. And once we got $3 billion, they changed their mind a little bit. But that's true. And the other thing they're going to give you a hard time about, if you're in an aggregate, you already know this, but we're going to get to a slide in a minute, but it's the old 80-20 rule, and all the companies come in and say, you're doing 50 million with us, but we're getting it from 20% of your agents. And so, I know that. And that's old 80-20 rule. It's going to be around way after we're gone. And they said, well, what can we do about it? And I said, well, I just tell you that your 20 is not the other guy's 20. It's not the other guy's 20 or the other guy's 20, because otherwise we'd only be having 20 agents in the whole group. So the other people that have their 20%, and you've got your 20, and it's not the same. Y'all got to figure out how to get that. In the South, they say you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, but you can if you take him by a salt lick first. So the company's got to figure out how to be that salt lick and get the other guy's 20%.
Well, that's easy. Incentive comp.
Well, not necessarily. That sounds good, but they all have a lot of that. And it's still, you still got to be able to compete where you're at and that kind of stuff. I agree. But
for a
I've
carrier,
also seen where we've offered our guys 2 or 3 points to roll a small book of business, and they didn't do it because they are independent agents and don't want to lose a market.
Right, but it's still more efficient and more effective for a carrier to work within a network to expand their influence and expand it than it is going agent to agent to agent to agent.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that. I sure don't.
That's that bottom line.
The other thing is, if you got a good group of folks, you can bring a new company in. We've had companies come in and do a contract with us, and all of a sudden they're in 4 states and they didn't have to spend one.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that saves them a lot of money. But the problem I have, John, is when they start picking on those other 80% and they want to cancel their contracts, and we go, wait a minute, let us be the forest ranger and manage the forest, and you guys take care of yours and try to, get some more of our trees. But, don't be getting people mad because they're not doing personal lines with you, but they're doing personal lines over here, or they don't do any personal lines.
Exactly. It's constant re-education at the carrier level of the fact that while independent agents remain the most efficient way to acquire a new piece of business, the network is the most efficient way to manage the distribution within a geographic area. It's just there's streamlined.
Right there, John, pretty significant, punchline what you just said. And I think a lot of people may know it, but they do not really focus on what you just said.
That the companies have to be reminded, and I think sometimes we need to be reminded. Well-managed network remains the most efficient way for a carrier to operate within a certain area. You've got pre-qualified agents, you've got network management who understands how each agency operates. They can align the carriers with the right agents. And to Ray's point, whether it's 80% or 20% or 50%, it doesn't make a difference. They're still going to get more and better and consistent production within a network than they are if they got to go agent to agent to agent to agent.
Yep.
And you have to remind the carriers of this all the time because they're brought up in a totally different mindset.
Yeah.
Carriers have not evolved in their thinking of the distribution channel, even though 70% of the agents are in the network.
Yeah. The other problem we've had, John, I don't had it with the 2 states, but we'll have Atlanta that manages Tennessee and Georgia, sometimes Alabama, or you'll have Nashville that has Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and not Georgia, and that type of stuff. So we end up with working with 2 different branch managers and that type of stuff, and it gets now a lot of the larger folks, they've got a national. They recognize it and they have one person's a point person to help out. But when you've got one state telling you one thing, other, and they don't want to combine, or they do want to combine it up, it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, in those situations, sometimes you got to go to the carrier and say, pick a point person. Let the branch managers, fight in the parking lot about who's gonna do it.
So you talked a lot about, Ray, in terms of how you guys being focused on in terms of being agency pro, and then trying to build that communication and education, literally constant education on both ends with the carrier and with the agencies. It's not coincidence that you guys are in top 4 and you have built this $3 billion. Everybody would aspire to be you. So what are some of the key things which you have mentioned here that, like you said, it's a win-win-win deal for all of them that you need to focus on, So what are some of those from your experience if somebody is starting a network today or in the early days?
Yeah, it's, it's good luck with it. But somebody said, if you had to do all over again, what would you do? I said, I'd own the back room. I wouldn't have given it away. But it depends on a lot of folks, a lot of folks are making a lot of money off the home office deal. And so, there's several aggregators out there that have been sold out or venture capitals come into it, a lot of money. So it's what you want to do to set up. You just got to get a feeling for the thing. Since we started out as shared agency services, we've always tried to have things that our guys could and gals could use. We get we've had a comparative rater just about day one. We've had we got a agility recovery. I'll make names, but every one of our branches has an agility recovery contract if they get hit by. We have tornadoes down here, a lot of hurricanes lately. But if something happens to your home office, we have that type of stuff. We have contracts with we've got contracts with workers' comp mods. We have,
that, in a bit. Yeah.
And
I
that's
hear
it.
you.
One of the things we're doing is we have where help me out, Brian, where you can go online and agency portal where they can go online and the companies can keep that
Post
up to
all their
date.
stuff to it, yeah.
Yeah, that particular portal has several of the larger aggregators in it, so the company can write it one time. Just make sure if you're mentioning the bells and whistles, it's the right group you're giving the update in their portal on. But
Yeah, well, you make a good point, Ray, and that is, that the agency networks are the place where the agencies look for direction. Like right now, with everybody moving to digital, the agents they don't have time. Their agents are selling, they're trying to manage their agencies in the middle of COVID. They got enough going on. They look to the agency network and say, all right, what should I do about technology? What should I do about this? And they really look for the networks to give them direction. And this is where the network can do contracts, use the scale, whether it's for the agency management system, whether it's for a platform like InsuredMine. This is where the network executives can really shine, is by harnessing and being that expert to bring things together and provide a variety of options to the individual agency members, so they don't have to think about it. It's okay. The network said this is where I should go. Done. I'll do it, and I can check it off my list. I can implement it. I can move forward.
Yeah, and not only can you do that type of stuff where you got people online. I mean, we have a voice over internet phone system they can use. We've got a off-site cloud service that they can host all their agency computerware with. But the other thing we've done in the last couple of years, we've come up with a group E&O policy that saved most people about 10-15% errors and omissions. We've got not a group, but we've got a cyber liability that's been designed to help our folks out, and we've used a premium finance company, same premium finance company now for 26 years. There's some found money in that if you do that right. Getting your E&S house together and trying to combine the whole secret of this, and the reason we're on the line with Roshan is the data, and that's we had one of our carriers came in and did a snapshot of everybody. We found out we had, it's crazy, like 70, 80, 100, 200 E&S houses that people were using, and we're sponsoring like 4, and they're getting, this, and this, and they still got the predominant of their money somewhere. Them somewhere else, and it's like, okay, wake up, let's get on this. But if you're getting in a group or you're in a group, look at the markets they got and get your folks to use them. I mean, you're leaving a lot of money on the table in many instances if you're using your, E&S house that you've been using all your years because you like them, but you can use the same markets over here, get 25% more commission and an override thrown in. That's found money. I like found money.
Mm-hmm.
I still pick up a dime or a penny when I see one, but found money is always.
All right, we got a question here. Let me see if I can. BTN, feel free to write your full name here. Do you partner with any PEO, professional employer organization, that can both help agency owners run their agency operations, but also as a product service to deliver to their clients?
We at one time we were partnering with one, and that didn't work out. We do have a payroll company that we endorse because they don't they haven't sold out, and they don't go out and try to sell your workers' comp to your payroll client. A lot of these, as you know, as all of you know, the big payroll, ADT, all those big payroll companies went in and stealing your workers' comp and general liability and your health and all, just because they're doing the payroll. PEOs, we do not. We have looked at them. Yeah, they're fine. They serve a purpose, but we just never have done that since the partnership didn't work out early on.
Yeah, they can create conflicts with some of your carriers now and then. So,
Of course.
yeah, it was a big thing, but now it's kind of settled itself down. So,
All right. So you were talking, John, earlier today about the McKinsey report.
yeah, this is Rashi. This is the big new reality that agency owners need to confront, and I think it's incumbent upon network leadership to really take the lead here. There was a recent report by McKinsey, and it revealed that we vaulted 10 years forward in consumer as well as business digital adoption in a matter of months since COVID. It was like, we're going up and up. COVID came straight up. Banks have transitioned quickly to remote sales and service. Grocery stores, schools, doctors, manufacturers are actively developing plans for lights out factories. And the question is, well, what about insurance agency? For the most part, if you want to interact with your insurance agency, you got to call them on the phone or send them an email. There are a number that have, the ability to chat, but not nearly as many as we need. We need the agents to get engaged like their bank, so their clients can engage digitally, whether that you have a client portal, whether that you got a client portal wrapped around an app, whether it's you institute a chat feature. Consumers are demanding this now. It's one thing COVID did was it forced a lot of people to do things they'd been thinking about. All the soccer moms were thinking, I'd really love to have my groceries delivered to me, and I just pull up and somebody comes out, just like the commercial, but they didn't have the time to set up the app and all that. COVID forced that. Now that's the new norm. And what all the studies say is people aren't going back to the way they used to do business. They're only going to go forward. And agents that aren't relevant from a digital perspective, I think are going to lose. If you go to the next slide, I think it becomes pretty clear when you start looking at some of this stuff here. Look at consumers spend online $1 million every minute of every day. Think about it. Every minute, $1 million of online purchases are made. You start doing the multiplication, that's 1.4 billion a day. If you look down at what people are buying on mobile apps, they're paying for the app. $3,800 an hour doesn't, $3,800 a minute doesn't sound a lot, but the apps are $2, $5. They're buying these apps, and they're literally spending $5.5 million a day so that they can have an app on their phone that they can use. Questions begs, we got the US, which is 95% of the population in the US is on the internet. We've got the highest penetration of population in the world. And it's only been amplified because now we're all stuck in our homes, or we're working from home, or we don't want to go to the store, we don't want to interact with people, we don't want to get sick.
Yep.
This only amplifies the pressure on insurance agents to become digitally relevant. And one of the things that one of the carriers pointed out to me is what the carriers do in personal lines, for example, is they track third-party data purchases. So who's buying MVRs, who's buying insurance score, and as a result, they can track how well independent agent companies are doing selling personal lines versus the direct writers. And during the period of COVID, the direct writers went through the roof in their purchases of MVRs, insurance scores, where the independent agent companies flat and down in those purchases. So it's a telling thing that those companies, which are much more digitally relevant, are attracting the consumers who want ease of use.
Yep.
So we've got to find a way for agents to be just as easy to work with as a direct writer. And there's a number of products out there. And some of the agency management systems have an online comparative rater that you can hook up and use and drive people to your agency and sell them personal lines. So I just think it's so incredibly important now. Maybe agents had a couple of years if COVID hadn't come along, but COVID changed the game.
So let me ask a very simple question to everyone. So I'm launching a poll as simple as asking, is your agency digital? We'll do it for a quick 10-15 seconds. And the idea of here is to ask, what do you all think even it's digital? And a following question would come out of that is, are you using anything beyond your phone, your AMS, basically a sales tool or any kind of a marketing automation? Because those things have become so much relevant today compared to it was a year ago. Nobody's knocking the office door anymore. So how are you making sure you are still engaging, connecting with your agencies? I see an overwhelming 90% response so far in terms of, yes, we are digital. But as we go into the second question, that's where I would like to dig a bit more deeper to understand what that digitization would mean to you. We'll also take a couple quick questions here. So one question is from Jack. In recent years, the large national broker have made decisions to partner with fewer wholesalers and program companies. Ray, this is for you. How do you see regional networks like yourself identifying the best to continue to work with, or do agency networks need to stay wide open to emerging markets, programs, and wholesalers?
That's a good question. Regional, you've got, it's interesting. When we first started and when we bring on new agents in the Southeast, a lot of their companies are regional companies. Early on, very few of them had more than one or two nationals, and the reason for that was it's you take on the travelers and you got to give them $500,000 in the first couple of years. Well, all of your regional markets, they're going to get a little bit upset when they know for the next 2 years anything they get a quote on or write on is something travelers didn't want. But when you get in a network and now you've got multiple folks that can write the business and get it, we just about got every national company there is. But the E&S brokers and all, I think you should look at them, particularly as a network, and say, folks, what we found is that there's E&S houses in Mississippi that do a better job in Mississippi than they do in Georgia. So you got to be open up to, you don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face, but I think there's good to be said about both of those. I sound like a politician. I'm not answering the question, but I like to narrow it down, but then we look at niche markets and, travelers not going to want to write a lot of vacant buildings or a lot of, so you gotta stay open for that to cover everybody, but realize in our group, you didn't need markets to get in. So a lot of times they've got their go-to market for their transportation or their pulpwood or their whatever. And we do a lot of ag. We've brought in several ag markets that have helped. If anybody's got a really good chicken coop, modern chicken coop market, call me up. We need that. But,
the wholesalers are a double-edged sword. We need them in our business because they do provide access to very specialized markets that the standard guys just don't offer. And there are a number of really good ones out there, and every agent needs them. And I think, again, networks can sort through and work with the best in class, but at the same time, some of them are bleeding into the standard market and offering online access for any agent to place a standard piece of small commercial business with them. And, as a guy involved in the network, that takes away production from the carriers we partner with. So it's a double-edged sword. And I think, networks need to be careful and thoughtful and work through, because it is a double edge. I've had some situations where, the wholesaler just promotes himself and says, well, we work with them. And the next thing you know, small commercial business going to wholesalers, not going through our code.
We had one a few years ago, got bought out by a national agency that, competed with all of our folks. So we decided to go with another E&S that wasn't owned by one of those folks. And they just came, well, don't roll your book. We'll just pay you the override director's commission, that type. So they're going to try to keep you. But you got to look at who you're doing business with. So there's folks out there there's premium finance companies that are owned by banks that own insurance agencies that compete with you every day.
Oh yeah.
You got to pay, and it's changing so fast.
Yep. So another follow-up question out of that is, as a follow-up, how do you see marketing opportunities from wholesalers, market and programs company continue to access your agents, which you were just referring to, with less in-person relationship building? Do you think the lack of in-person meeting has an impact on business written with the current companies?
I think it's depends on where you're at. It seems to me in our group, a lot of the smaller town folks like the face-to-face, which seems to be anti what the companies are trying to do. They don't want to travel that far, so they put a lot of those on their phone, marketing stuff. The other crazy thing is a lot of these national E&S houses, they've got the same standard markets we got. We're talking to one. We had a problem with one of our owners with a company claimed that they didn't put through us, they put it through an E&S house. I'm going, well, how can we help you here? But it's interesting. Now we do one of our E&S houses that we sponsor or endorse. They, if you got a big house in Hawaii, it's easier to tell your agent's owner, say, hey, go to these guys, they can write it. We don't have to go get a license in Hawaii and put a contract out there and pay $6,000-8,000 a year for $300 commission you're going to make. So in some cases, partnering with the folks makes sense. But we got one today. They're getting into workers' comp. And I'm looking down the list, and half of their workers' comp companies are companies we have direct access to. And if our owners don't let the placers know that, next thing you know, we're going to be having business, at less commission, no profit sharing, and not helping anybody except the company and the broker.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So you mentioned, Ray, earlier, you're talking about how are you preparing yourself, and with this list of technology or fair play of what are those best practices? You talk about the phone systems, the computer systems.
And I talk about them, and let me just tell you right now, out of 107 folks on the phone system, there's about 10 or 15 right now. So computer systems, it's, if I was a benevolent dictator for a day or two and could start, if I was starting from scratch, everybody would be on the same phone system, the same computer system. And then you could do some cool things. You could have a virtual service center. You could, you could have people answering the phone, live answering the phone and not having to, remember how to spell the person's name to find their extension. So there's a lot of things, but it's the old deal. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So you can come up with these, but we offer them, and not everybody takes advantage of them, but they are there. Yeah. And I think as more and more people do go on it, particularly with COVID-19 right now, everybody working at home. I've got 25 people in my retail shop that one of them lives full-time in New Orleans, one of them's in Shreveport, one of them's in LJ, Georgia. But now about 5 or 6 are coming in a day, and the rest of them are working at home. And we're using the voice over internet, and we're using the cloud that we've been using now for a while. not missing a beat.
Yep.
And that really, in fact, it's kind of making us think: do we need to have this cat stuff if your office? But now, if your office burned down, you wouldn't even know it until next month when you came back in to see it.
Yep. And I think, what you mentioned, that phone system, you have to do it. Obviously, there is that value of scale and consistency and same platform.
It doesn't take too many people to get I think on ours right now, you can buy the phone for $100 or whatever, and for $20 a month,
Yep.
you're connected. You got to pay your internet connection, but that's it.
Yeah.
And your FCC, we're paying your long distance, we're paying all stuff. And if you're doing the 4-digit number to my folks in out of state, it's not even long distance. It's just like they're down the hall.
Yeah, and you can hook it right into your cell phone and have it forwarded.
I've got my right now. This phone here is my office phone. If it rings, I'm picking up my office, and I can transfer it.
Right.
The bad news about that is you can never get away from work again. But it's a very convenient tool, and it's.
And I would also say, Ray, that I think probably beyond anything in the system, I think InsuredMine would be one of those which has been fairly successful in terms of bringing that consistency. We are doing it in phase, but more than one thread has already been rolled out, and they are on the system. Now we are rolling out next phase.
Your little agency app is, that's included in the thing.
Yes.
John and I were at that meeting 2 years ago, John, that you spoke at. Was that this year or last year? Last year.
Yeah.
And the guy was from McKinney. One of the guys said, whoever comes up with the mobile app that not only does the insurance, but puts your financial stuff in there with Edward Jones or whoever, puts your traffic on there, your ways included in there, and puts the weather report and puts it all together along with your calendar to say, hey, your wife's not going to be home when you get home because she took the kids to scouts or whatever. That person or group is going to win.
Yeah.
And, they're going to do business with you just to have that app. And so that's kind of where we're looking towards. And one of the reasons we picked you as a partner to try to get that going.
Of course. Thank you. And I think Michael has one question here. Roshan, is the situation that Ray just mentioned, not this just, the previous question, workers' comp placed in the market via ENS that we have direct access to, is that something that InsuredMine can show? Yeah, so let me give you one example. And this is a wonderful case study that Brian from SecureRisk, who is the Chief Operating Officer, and I was talking just a few days ago. So imagine someone wants to write in the network, a small decent sized agency wants to write a church. This poor guy has only written one church in his neighborhood in the past. And this new prospect, it's a big one and he wants to write that. But what is that obvious question from that church guys? They will ask, hey, have you written church? And his answer will not get him the business if he says one. But what will make him look good and better is the strength, the collective strength of his network. He's gonna be answering and with InsuredMine, that's the data he's gonna have in front of him to say, hey, I'm a part of a network. We have written hundreds of millions of dollars of church. We understand, here are my top 3 carriers that we do business in this space. That immediately transforms the perception and his ability to do business in that space. And that is the power of, as Ray was talking about, of the data, that how can you leverage data to your strength, to your abilities, being a part of a network.
And it helps the networks because you can then look and see where the like we found out, look at all these ENS houses that is low flying, all we got to do is and the cool thing about ENS is you can BOR it without having to get your customer involved. The agency can BOR it from one ENS house to another. All of a sudden you're getting more commission, override, and you got the same coverages. Yep. So it's I also heard today, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that some of the regional ENS houses are getting some of their main companies are cutting back on the regional. So it's kind of a reverse of the the national brokers looking at fewer customers. It looks like some of the national companies are looking at fewer brokers to work with. So that's going to have a bearing on things also.
Yep. So before we go to the next question here, I'll launch another quick 10 seconds poll. I want to hear who are using any of these CRMs and the marketing automation tool. We'll run it for 10 seconds. Yep, I'm expecting, probably 50 or less % would be using it, but it goes neck to neck so far.
Oh, that means the network guys are doing their job. They're getting stuff out to their agents. I love it.
Of course. And I think that's one of the game changer in this space right now is you got to, beyond bringing the carriers and the knowledge and the training, you got to bring technology along with you. Otherwise, you're leaving a big piece behind.
Well, that's one thing we'll look at the next slide is the competition from these other digital agencies. Policy Genius and SecureRisk. They're competing with the member agencies of network.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we talk a little bit about that, John? Why it is so important for agencies to take the lead here?
Well, the bottom line is agents will always do a better job with having a digital platform. They can reach out to more people, they can engage more people, and let's face it, the customer base is diversified. You've got people who want to communicate with you digitally because for whatever reason in their life it's just easier, and you've got others that are always going to want to be, give me a call or give me an email. They want to engage more directly. Agencies need to have platforms that allow them to do both so that it can attract a broader range of client over time. And of course, with personal lines, that's really becoming commoditized, and you need to be able to do it quickly, efficiently. Let's face it, the revenues aren't as great. On the commercial line side, you've got commercial clients who want to be digital for whatever reason. It's how they've grown up. It's what they got. So, you've got a number of these new agencies popping up that are fully, completely digital. They're very successful. I think
InsureTech.
There's something we can learn from them by adopting some of the same things. And again, networks, I think, can help lead the way by curating vendors, developing group agreements, offering training and counseling. Quite frankly, this is about self-preservation. Mm-hmm. The more we can ensure the long-term success of independent insurance agents, networks will be in a strong position to be around for a long time.
Companies are pouring billions into these startup groups trying to figure a way to do things, but it seems to me like it's still coming back that people's, and this is changing, but up till now, most people started their search internet, but they still wanted a little advice, and we're giving them free advice. I mean, let's just face it. Yeah. So that's where I think we need to try to figure out how to I mean, one of our carriers now, I was at a meeting last year or year back when you could travel, and they had a new BOP that I think 3 questions is all you had to answer, and they could give you the quote, including how much contents the guy needed, the sales, all that. So I raised my hand. I said, "So y'all covering us for E&O?" And they said, "No." Why? I said, "Well, good gosh, I mean, you just quoted an HVAC dealer up there for 90,000 contents for under $1,000, and he bought the policy. And then next week, when his $1 million shipment of carrier or train compressors come in for the season clearance, and he forgets to call me, is he going to sue you or me?" And so that's kind of it's still, you need people to be able to ask questions and not just count on these robots calling you up trying to.
Right. And that's where agencies need to adapt and think about. So in your situation, well, someone's got to get on a phone and review everything with the guy. We can't totally rely on everything being, we're going to have to mesh the very best of what an independent agent offers, which is the experience and the advice, with the very best of digital engagement, because quite frankly, whether we like it or not, people want to use this dang thing to do as much as they can. We've got to find a way to engage them and have a holistic relationship.
And we also have
the way it is. We got to do it.
Yeah, and we also have to make it quick and easy for our folks too. The comparative raters went out of style because the companies didn't want us competing against one another, and they wanted us to take 5 minutes. You don't have 5 minutes hardly anymore. So, I mean, you can't go to a bar and have a good argument anymore because somebody's going to Google and how many people really sit in that stadium. It's just not fun.
I'll still go to the bar and listen to your story.
That's what people want to know, is how fast and how quick. So we've got to formulate ways for our folks to be able to get a quick quote, get it bindable, but yet at the same time, do what we do best, and that's make sure that they're being advised and getting the proper coverages they need.
And I'll put a plug in here because we're coming up on the hour.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that we've got to continue to drive new business to the partner carriers. I'm convinced agents still are the easiest, quickest way to acquire new business. The networks prove it all the time. They rack up huge numbers, but the carriers are starting to get, I would say testy, but they are starting to look at this network versus that network. So it's important to have individual production plans with every agent for each of the carrier partners, and so that they keep focused on that, and we can drive the business to the carriers, because that's essential. We can't provide that stream of new business on a consistent and regular basis. The question is why the carriers need us.
Yeah. As we go to the top of the hour, 1 hour is too little for having these two guys. It's we can never do justice to the time here. But again, I think I'll take one last question, and I know I'm taking a leverage of my privilege here of extending it by a few minutes, but just want to make sure we have covered few things. Of any last question anybody has, otherwise I just wanted to show this was what one of the things we discussed earlier was how we are looking at it from different perspectives, slicing and dicing that data to look at an intelligent report at a network basis. But before we wrap up here, one final comment from both of you, John and Ray, and that will bring a good conclusion to this.
I hope we got people thinking, and that's really what this was about, is thinking about where networks are going, where your network is going, how to help your agents compete better so that you self-preserve. I'm a big believer in networks and a big believer in independent agents, and I just get worried that this COVID has really turned things around in terms of how consumers are engaging. And I'm a little concerned that agents aren't quite as far along as we have to on the spectrum.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks, John. Always appreciate your insight. Ray.
Yes, sir.
So any final comment before we wrap up here?
No, just keep up the good work, folks. Keep your attitudes up, keep your people informed. One of the cool things that used to have webinars all the time. Well, these Zoom, I kind of like these Zoom meetings, and so they're. But if you're going to have a Zoom meeting in your network, figure out how to mute the participants up front and not ask them to do it, because they're not going to do it, and you're going to be hearing stuff you really don't want to hear.
Of course. That's a wonderful advice. And on that note, we will bring it to an end. Thank you everyone for joining. This has been a wonderful participation. If you are not had a chance to listen to the whole thing, you are in luck here. I will be sending this presentation to all of you in next day or so. So thank you all for joining. We will talk soon on our next topic. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thanks.